Well, on Wednesday, House Republican Bob Latta introduced legislation to set standards for the safety and security of autonomous vehicles. I spoke with Congressman Latta about his Self-Drive Act and what he's looking to achieve.
In the 115th Congress, the Congress before this one, we had the Self-Drive Act, which I introduced, and it was multiple parts in the piece of legislation. First, one of the things we've seen in this country, unfortunately, traffic accidents are going up and deaths. We had about 37,000 people killed in traffic accidents. And so we want to get these things down because it's horrible to lose these lives out on the highways. But it's very important that we consider several things as we look at self-drive. One, we want the United States to be the leader in self-drive. We don't want our technology coming from other countries, be it China, Japan, anywhere in Europe. It's also important because if you think, because serving on the Energy and Commerce Committee, that we don't want to have a situation like we've had with Huawei, where we've had what they call rip and replace with a lot of our smaller telecoms out there and companies because of the having Chinese technology in there. And some people might be very leery about having Chinese technology in an automobile. But we want to make sure that we have preemption out there. We can't have 50 states, the District of Columbia out there creating standards for self-drive. We've got to have a national standard there because we want to do what they call a bumper to bumper. And that we would control on the federal side. The states would still have all the control that they normally would have. So it's important there. We also want to make sure in the legislation that we would have the information there for cybersecurity, privacy. We want to make sure that the testing is there. One of the things we said was we want to make sure that these vehicles were as safe or safer than anything else on the road today. And then we also want to make sure that senior citizens and individuals with disabilities have access and they can get around. And especially when we saw with COVID-19 that a lot of people's access and mobility was really restricted. So we're looking at that. The United States, we have about 950,000 people that are employed in auto-related jobs. So we want to keep not only the technology, but the jobs here in the United States. And so, when you look at all of these things, we want to be the leader in the world. When we were working on the legislation in the last Congress, that we had great cooperation working with all parties out there. And the Democrats, we had a good working relationship. And so we got the bill out of our committee 54-0, which is quite a feat. And the bill actually passed out of the House of Representatives on a voice vote. So, we want to move this legislation along because one of the things that I've also, when I was talking to all the different industry groups out there, I said, if you look back 5 years ago, are you where you thought you'd be today on self-drive technology? And they all said, no, we're much farther ahead. So this is what we want to get done. We want to get this moving, and it's because it's to save lives and move the technology forward.
Congressman, as you do consider moving the technology forward, do you think there should be limitations in technology sharing between the U.S. and China when it comes to technology around autonomous vehicles?
Well, one of the things that's so important is on the cybersecurity side, as I mentioned, part of the bill deals with cybersecurity. You don't want to give your technology away to someone that you might have an issue with in the future. And we know that the Chinese have stolen and steal U.S. technology. And we want to make sure that it's protected. In Ohio, we have the Transportation Research Center, one of the largest of its kind in the world, where they do a lot of the testing, cyber work. And again, you have to protect what you have. And so as we go forward, again, this is why I say we want to have U.S. technology, and we want to make sure that's where we're going in the future.
Congressman, as you had alluded to, you first introduced this bill in 2017, but it faced objections from the Senate. So when reintroducing this bill, what are some of the revisions you've made before pushing it forward?
Well, when the bill went over the Senate, we worked with the Senate. Unfortunately, we had an issue with the trial attorneys and with the Democrats on this legislation. Again, when a bill passes out of the House of Representatives with a voice vote, and it passed out of the committee 54-0. It showed the great bipartisanship that we had on this legislation. And so, I think that's important. And so as we go forward again, we have to work with our industry groups and all of the folks, the innovators, the entrepreneurs, because again, we don't want to slow things down. We want things to progress. And one of the great things about serving on the Energy and Commerce Committee, more bills usually come out of our committee than any other committee in Congress. And that we do things in a bipartisan nature. And again, in the last Congress, when Greg Walden was the chairman, Republican on our side, 93% of the bills came out bipartisan out of committee. So we want to work with everyone again, because we had, as I said, I believe we had a great working relationship with across the aisle in the previous Congress. But we have got to get this thing moving, because again, every day we wait, we're losing time. And again, lives are at stake, individuals with mobility is at stake, and we want to make sure that the United States is number one in this technology.
Congressman, as you mentioned, the coronavirus pandemic has made the need for self-driving cars higher in the U.S. But as we look at promises from the Teslas of the world, even Ubers of the world who are working on this kind of technology, what is your best guess as to a timeline for when we as consumers might actually see these kinds of self-driving cars out there en masse?
Well, when you talk about the very end there about en masse is a good point, because a lot of times, a lot of people think that these cars are going to be all over the road next year, even if we got the legislation passed. You're going to see a lot of these in fleets. So it's not going to be like individuals owning these cars and they'll build out. But we're looking at trying to get these, because you have to get the testing. That's one of the things that's really important. If you're not testing, it's very difficult to move forward. And I know I've ridden 3 self-driving cars. There's always something behind the wheel, but I was always amazed at the technology out there. And again, as I said, those that spur this innovation are moving it forward at an amazing clip. And they might say that all of a sudden, when companies are saying that they're much farther than ahead, because technology spurs technology and growth, and that's what we want to see in this country. We don't want to take a literal back seat to the rest of the world. We want to be the one in the driver's seat of the United States in this technology.